Welcome to the 45th episode of the Game 4 podcast. In this episode, still recording from home and sponsored by Gaddis Gaming, we'll talk about whether technology is a good thing for tabletop gaming. I'm Adam.
I'm Matt.
And this is the Game 4 podcast. Game 4 is a platform to help connect tabletop gamers to help you get more out of your tabletop gaming. Matt and I are part of a software development and design company called Milkcan, and because most of the folks at Milkcan love tabletop games, we developed the Game 4 app and launched it in early 2018. We launched this companion podcast in June of 2019 to help tabletop gamers get more enjoyment out of their hobby. Due to the COVID-19 global pandemic, we've hibernated the Game 4 app in July of 2020 and plan to bring back a retooled version of the app for Android, iOS, and the web when gaming in person is safer. Until then, we'll keep bringing you this podcast to help you get more out of your tabletop gaming. We think it's important to get more out of your tabletop gaming. I think it's one of those things where like it's not just fun, but it's also kind of good for your mental health and all that kind of stuff.
Right, and you can't have too much fun either.
I don't think that. Well, I mean, I don't know. I get maybe. Well,
like, can you be glutton on fun? I don't.
Can you be a fun glutton? I don't know. That's a good question. I think maybe. It's hard to say.
No,
maybe that's another.
There'd be like a fun diet pill if there was.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the Lord knows. I think that's just the world is a fun diet pill, as far as that's concerned. Yeah, we're getting a little deep. We're getting a little deep here early.
Was our rehab,
right? Yeah, that was terrible. Ugh. Anyway. On to better news. Like, what have you been doing in your hobby, which is fun, since the last podcast?
So I got to play the Troika RPG Friday night, last Friday, about a week ago.
Yeah.
That's a little gonzo, but a lot of fun. One of those things where what I really liked about it was that nearly everything in the game is just randomized. Like,
okay.
A lot of the encounters and everything, like, you know, it's like kind of like normal stuff could happen, but it's probably not going to happen. This completely random thing is going to happen.
Right.
So yeah, it was a lot of fun just to kind of be able to just have a kind of like a goofy RPG, you know.
And where does Troika take place? Like, what kind of, like, is it a fantasy thing, a sci-fi thing, a steampunk, or something totally different?
I would say kind of steampunk sci-fi, but there's maybe some magic mixed in.
Okay, that's cool.
It's kind of almost like a trope of normal of regular RPGs. Like, everything's kind of like got its twist to kind of make fun of, you know, what everybody else is doing. Like, my class was a medic. So with Dick spelled DICK. Okay. So I was kind of a jerk.
Oh, wow.
So, like, one of my skills is pouring salt in people's wounds is actually how I healed people.
Wow. That's I don't want to go to that doctor. That sounds like a bad time.
But my whole stick was that I'm just like fed up of having to heal everybody, and I think I'm like way more grandiose than everybody. Like, you know, there was like we were trying to attend a party at the roof of the hotel, this strange hotel. But, you know, they gave us, you know, we rented a room at the hotel, but there was only one bed. So I said, well, I'm the only one that actually does anything in the party by keeping you all alive, so I need my rest. So
gotcha.
You know, gotcha. So stuff I wouldn't normally probably do as an RPGer, I was actually able to have fun doing it because that was just kind of the whole stick. I think one of our party members, I'm pretty sure, was kind of like stuck in a time loop. So this is like his 30th time through the adventure, which I couldn't tell if that was like part of the actual adventure or if it was like a clever thing by our game master to allow the guy, because he had played the game before as well, to let him kind of play the adventure and kind of make the metagaming part of the adventure.
Because he kind of knew what the next thing was and stuff like that, because he had been through it kind of like a Groundhog Day sort of situation.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where the cleverness was, but it was brilliantly clever.
It would be very funny to like have a game that was like more of a one-off, And so obviously you only generally play it once, but every once in a while you have somebody who's played it before play it again, and then their
Hmm.
character is stuck in a time loop and they kind of know what's going to happen. That'd be kind of funny. Yeah.
Right. Like,
That's a
no, you don't
smart
want
idea.
to. Yeah, you don't want to go there.
Gust of wind, dog barks, and go. Yeah. I haven't watched Groundhog Day in a while, and it just was Groundhog Day a couple days ago. I should have watched it then.
Yeah.
What else you been doing?
Um, we got to the fourth level of the Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
Mm-hmm.
So that so it's a smaller one, but there's actually some pretty cool stuff going on that the adventurers are just starting to figure out. What's kind of nice is they've been kind of stuck in caverns, and which half I think like a third of the party are druids. So
Mm-hmm.
being stuck in caves is not really a good druid thing. But this level is all like mushrooms and like overgrowth and stuff like that. It's almost like an underground like forest. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool.
but yeah, so we got further on that, and then lastly, I finally got a Elgu Saturn. So
The resin
Elgu
printer.
makes the resin printers. I've got the Mars Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the Mars Pro that I have, which I absolutely love. Can't recommend it enough to others. Uh, but the only thing I didn't like about it is that the size was a bit smaller. So some of the larger prints I was having a hard time fitting or being
Mm-hmm.
able to actually even do.
Mm-hmm.
So the Saturn came out, I believe it came out in the summer.
Okay.
Um, but the supply has been very, very limited. Um, so
A
I've
lot
been,
of things have been going that way. Yeah.
yeah, so I've been hunting, basically monitoring it for several months now. And then because a lot of the company sells only through Amazon in the US. So they would like ship to Amazon, and then like if you didn't hop on it right away, it was sold out pretty quickly
Mm-hmm.
by bots that are buying it and then reselling it for like twice as much.
Ugh, that should be made illegal or something. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
really should.
And the funny thing was like I even contacted them about it, like the company, and they're like, "Yeah, we're aware of it. We talked to Amazon, and they said Amazon says it's not against their terms of service."
Well, of course they make
So
money. That's what they want.
right, so they're like
Because I
tough.
bet you the resellers are then probably reselling it through Amazon, and then Amazon's
Yes, they
making
are,
even more money.
and they
Yeah,
get a
absolutely.
percentage. Yeah,
So yeah,
hmm
they've got no interest in stopping that train.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had finally just about given up, and was I think it was Saturday or Sunday. I forget when I messaged you, but
I think it was Friday actually. Didn't
was
you
it
order it
Friday?
on? Because I was just still amazed that
Yeah,
that
that's right.
basically I think you ordered it on Friday and you got it Monday.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, it's
And
Amazon. That's true. It's not coming from China.
yeah, well, I mean,
Yeah.
technically it is, but
Oh,
not.
really? Wow.
Yeah,
Jeez.
but yes, they had shipped it to. I think this one was actually in southern Wisconsin. So
Oh well, gosh, that's nice.
yeah, so
Well, there's a big Amazon place in Kenosha.
right, and then now
Yeah, yeah,
there's
yeah.
one up here too. Not as big, but it's easier for them to ship stuff. So
Oh, I didn't know that. Hmm.
yeah, up in Greenville, right? So
Hmm.
right near the airport.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, I was happened to go on there. I was looking around trying to find, after getting the messages back from the support, trying to find a way to basically set up my own alerts on Amazon so that I would know when it came in.
Mm-hmm.
Because randomly checking it throughout the day for 2 weeks had gotten kind of old.
Yeah, yeah.
And just as I was getting it set up, one became available, and I quickly bought it. And
Nice.
so now I'm going to be playing with that this week. I've got some more resin coming today. Should
Mm-hmm.
be here any time now.
Mm-hmm.
So I will be printing lots of stuff. Got some stuff for you too. I'm
Mm.
curious to see.
Yeah, me too.
I'm waiting
Looking
to.
forward to that.
Yeah, so not only bigger, it's also 4K resolution versus the 2K,
Mm.
and it's mono chrome, so it's just a single color, um, which versus it trying to take the 3 pixels and make white, it is just black and white.
Yeah, yeah.
So it prints a lot faster. I think about a third of the time
Oh, wow. Well, that's really interesting. I hadn't
per
even thought of
layer.
that.
So
Yeah, I
yeah,
suppose LCD screens are generally RGB.
hmm
So to make black, well, to make white, yeah, no, that's a whole different thing. So
so
yeah,
now
but
it's
if it's
yeah,
just
the monochrome is a lot faster for
yeah, yeah,
shooting that UV light. So yeah.
that makes sense. Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out for you. And like I said, I got some stuff that I want you to print for me, and I'm looking forward to seeing that as well. So that'd be very cool.
Yeah.
And then,
So
but it's the same brand as your previous printer.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
and it's got some nice stuff like this one. You can hook up to the network, so I can uh, send print stuff right from my computer versus doing the
Put it on a thumb drive or
sneaker
whatever.
network. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's very cool.
how about you?
Yeah, I've been working on, let's see here. So I finished up the Adeptus Mechanicus Infiltrators on Twitch and then switched over to painting Adeptus Mechanicus Vanguards, which are the smaller, less skinny guys. They're like less robot-y. And but they're all for Kill Team. So I've been doing that all for a Kill Team force. And as soon as I get these Vanguards finished up, of which there are 6, then I will be done painting Adeptus Mechanicus for Kill Team. And then I'll probably be done Friday when I stream next, which will be Friday at 10 a.m. in the morning, Central Time. And then I will probably on Monday after that. So this upcoming Monday, I will probably start Monday night is when I do my stuff there. I'll probably start on the Terrorgeist, which is a kind of like a skeletal, almost kind of zombie dragon sort of monster, big giant honking thing. It's not huge. It sits on a base that's probably a good, I don't know, 5-6 inches in diameter, and it's a good sized figure. And I'm going to be using that for Warcry. Now that these new Warcry like force books came out for all the 4 different Grand Alliances, you can use. It kind of replaces an earlier book that was called Mercenaries and Monsters. And so you can use the Terrorgeist as a monster in one of your types of missions. Basically, like one player says, I want to go searching for a monster. And then the other player plays the monster. And then they play against each other and stuff like that and whatever.
That's cool.
But yeah, so I've been wanting to paint that Terrorgeist for quite some time. And so I decided he's already built and primed and his base texturing is all done and everything like that. So I think I'll just start working on him next for on Twitch.
Nice.
Otherwise, I've been doing other stuff off of Twitch as well. I finished up my Demons from Frostgrave. Last episode, I talked about getting their bases textured and all that kind of stuff. I did a real quick paint job on them, not this past weekend, but the weekend before. They were again. I'm generally painting always to like tabletop standard, or maybe a little above tabletop standard, because I've been doing it for a long time. But it's,
I was gonna say, yeah, your tabletop standard is different from my tabletop standard.
Sure, yeah, I could see that.
But yeah, those came out really nice. I like it.
Yeah, they turned out nice, and they were pretty quick to do. But I also kind of I always like to cheat if I can. So like those models, it's not like I just primed them black and then just started painting. I primed them black, and because they're wearing a lot of like metal armor, I then sprayed silver, kind of what's known as a zenithal highlight, where you kind of spray a highlight color just kind of from above, so it doesn't get into the undersides. It doesn't get into like the armpits and in between the legs and all those places where the light wouldn't hit either. And so I did a zenithal highlight instead of doing it with white, because normally with the zenithal highlighting technique, you spray down black and then spray white over it. I sprayed down black to start, and then I sprayed silver over the top of it. So it was kind of like, the armor was almost nearly done. And then it was just throwing some washes on there and then painting the skin on the demons where you saw it here and there, and painting a little bit of this and that, and doing the bases. And yeah, it was, so that's all done. And they were fun.
Very cool. I
think I posted some pictures of them online. And then on Saturday, I had a meeting in the afternoon with a friend of mine on a project that we're working on. And then I think I got done probably about 4:00 maybe. And I was just like, well, what am I going to do now? And I was just sitting at my hobby table, and there's this model called the Harbinger of Decay, which is an old school not super, super old school, but a relatively older GW model. And it's a Nurgle creature, like the Nurgle are kind of the decayed, kind of diseased sort of faction of chaos. And he's sitting on this old kind of fly-eaten horse who's got, like, you can see some of the horse's skeleton, and stuff like that and whatever. And he's got a big scythe, the guy, not the horse, and all that kind of stuff. And it was a model that I had bought, I think, off of eBay, and then kind of rescued. And I reprimed it. Like, I rebuilt it, put it on a circular base, and primed it probably 2 years ago. And it has been sitting on my table for all that time. and it was
Yeah.
primed black and then dusted from white from above with like a zenithal highlight, and it's just sat there, and I just never painted it, never painted it, never painted it. So Saturday I'm just looking at it, I'm like, and then like I said, started painting it probably around 4:30, and finished everything but the base by probably, I don't know, 10 o'clock. By taking a
Oh
little
wow.
break for dinner there too. And then the next morning I finished up the base and painted the rim. And so he was all done. I mean, I used a lot of, again, transparent colors over that black and white zenithal, so there's like the main horse body was just like a single color that I put on. And in
Mm-hmm.
some spaces where the white paint didn't get, it turns into shadow. And the places where the white paint hit a lot along the tops of the haunches on the horse and stuff like that, then it's real light. And when you put a light colored transparent color over it, it looks like you're blending colors when you're really not. And so yeah, like his cloak was done mostly that way, the horse was done mostly that way, the armor is silver, so it's it's armor, so it's metal colors.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a very quick, fast process, and it turned out well. I actually, as I was doing it, I was posting on Twitter. Like as I was going along, I'd paint for a while, I'd stop, take a picture of it, paint for a while,
Mm-hmm.
stop, take a picture of it. So you can kind of see, if you follow me on Twitter on Saturday, you can kind of see as I went along with it. And then on Sunday, I posted kind of final pictures after I finished the base. So it
Nice.
was a
Yeah, I
fun
think
little project.
I think I only saw the final picture. I don't know if I caught the in progress, but yeah,
Hmm.
I would not have guessed that it was just an afternoon. That came out really well.
Yeah, it was a fun little project. And,
Yeah.
and again, like I said, it's all about, well, it's not all about, but it's very much about prep. When you kind of paint and you do the zenithal even pretty right, it really helps, especially if you're using transparent colors. Then it really helps to make it look good. And then you go back in with some washes here and there, and you just kind of touch up some little areas, add in a little bit more darkness into some folds and shadows and things like that in the cloak and all that jazz. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that was what I did. Pretty much, that's been my hobby. I think I don't think I've worked on anything else much recently. I mean, I paint twice a week on Twitch, and I do some other stuff here and there where I can. But I'm also making videos, and I'm also working my day job and all that stuff. I mean, you can't hobby all the time, sadly, but
Right.
it is what it is. So yeah, but yeah, that's pretty much what we've been doing the last couple of weeks. Looking forward to the 3D printing stuff, and I need to check out Troika. I should go online and check it out. I actually got a role playing game that I found on eBay that's from 1993 that I remember buying back in 1993, like at
Okay.
Gen Con. And I
Mm-hmm.
bought that, and it showed up, and it finally showed up today. I ordered it on eBay back in late December, and it finally got here today because it was coming from the UK, and it's in really good condition. It's like really nice. It's a game called
Nice.
Underground from Mayfair Games, and I remember buying it like at Gen Con 1993. And it's funny because on the cover of it, it says it's 2021 and the dream has died, which I just think is really interesting since it is now actually 2021. And well, there you
Wow.
go. But yeah, it's kind of cool. It's basically about how the government figured out how to make super soldiers, like your Captain America, except
Yeah.
that then they come home and then they're homeless vets, except that they're super powered, and that's a problem. And it's just
Okay.
about how it's just, so it's an interesting RPG. Again, probably one I'll never play. I never did play it when I bought the game originally, but I love the artwork and the story behind it and all that
Mm.
stuff. It's one of those books you just kind of buy to read. um,
Yep.
but it rode around in my car for a while, and then eventually it got rained on in my car, and then it got ruined, so I had to throw it away. So I was glad to finally find a
Aw.
copy of it again.
Nice.
Yeah, but that just showed up actually this morning. So, our friends at Gaddis Gaming want to thank their supporters for bringing their latest Kickstarter campaign, Empire Falls, to life. If you missed the Kickstarter or want to add to your pledge, a pledge manager is now available. Check the GameFound.com link in the show notes to be able to get in on the Empire Falls or to add to your pledge. And as an added thank you to all of our listeners, you can now get 10% off your entire purchase of World War I and World War II miniatures at Gaddis Gaming's website when you use the promo code GAME4. That is GAME and the number 4. Find out more by going to gaddisgaming.com. That is GADDISGAMING.com. And we will also have a link to that in our show notes. And thank you to Gaddis Gaming for sponsoring the Game 4 podcast.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. So,
So our topic today.
technology. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, I almost feel like for this topic, we should just ask Siri. You're like, Siri,
I mean,
what do you think
possibly.
about technology?
Yeah, I don't know that we're going to get a great answer, to be honest with you. I don't know.
But yeah, it's an interesting thing, technology. Like, especially in like pop culture, like it's either like shown as like this wonderful, amazing thing, or it's like something to
Like on
be
Star Trek when you go to the replicator and you
right.
get food and stuff like that. Sure.
Yeah, and like there's
Yeah,
no
yeah.
hunger anymore, and everybody's just happy,
Post
or
scarcity.
like the Matrix, and it's just going to control you and kill you, and watch
Skynet.
out. Right? Yeah, Skynet is a perfect example.
Skynet did nothing wrong. But
That's
yeah,
that's
no,
as far as whenever I type at the computer, that's all I type is
right, yeah, no,
Skynet.
that's how it works.
But yeah, like so, as we were kind of getting show notes together today, it was really funny. Like whenever we get stuff ordered from Amazon, our the girl with an A name, because I won't say her because she'll go crazy right now.
Good point.
She flashes yellow to let me know that there's a message. Usually, it tells me that oh, there's something on the front steps, or in our mailbox that's been delivered.
Hmm.
So it was flashing, and I had just been out there and noticed that there wasn't anything in. So I was, I didn't want to venture out in the cold to the mailbox so early in the morning,
Yeah,
because it
because it's
typically
like,
wasn't mail.
well, it was -8 this morning when I got up. It's
Right,
warmed
and
up a bit now, but yeah.
that's just temperature. That's not even wind chill. So it feels like
Right,
it's like
yeah, yeah.
what -30 or 40 out right now. I think and this is
Actually,
Fahrenheit.
now it's yeah, now it's actually according to my watch, it's 7 outside right now, so we've gone
Mm,
positive. Although
yes.
again, wind chill, who knows?
Fun fact, boys and girls: -40 is the same in Fahrenheit as it is in Celsius.
It's true. It's very true.
Yeah. So the notification thing was going on, and I'm like, oh, it must be telling me, but let me figure out what's going on. So I asked, to read the notification, and it was to tell me that my fridge water filter, based on my past purchase um, history, was probably ready to be reordered because it was on schedule. And last night, our refrigerator had started like giving us a little uh, beeping noise when I filled up my wife's water bottle to let me know that the filter is about due to be ready to be replaced. And like we don't have a smart fridge. We didn't buy the fridge off of Amazon. Like the only thing
So
we've
the
ever
fridge
bought
and the little disembodied voice lady from Amazon, they're not talking to each other, is what you're saying.
right. Like not
Gotcha.
that I know
Exactly. Yeah. There you go.
of. But because we bought two previous filters since we moved into this house, and they were apparently, I guess, 5 months apart, and it was now 5 months later, it told me that, hey, it probably is time to do it again. And sure enough, it was right.
Hmm.
So I mean, on one hand, it was like super nice because I didn't have to remember. Normally, I don't remember which filter it is. I don't want to have to go search for my order history. Instead, I was just able to say, yeah, add that to my cart, and then I confirmed it and and ordered it today. So that was super nice. But at the same time, it was like, that's a little weird that they can pick out something so minute as that. You know, what
My
other
my
stuff is going on?
wife does not like robots, and I can tell you right now that she would not like that at all. If it was gonna like be like, hey, don't forget you got to do this, and it was like order some sort of, she would not dig that. And that's the thing, is that some people like that kind of extra added convenience, and that's fine. Nothing wrong with it.
Right.
And then there's other people who want to feel like they've got maybe more control over their life, or they're not, being told to do things by machines and things like that. And
Exactly. Yeah.
and that really translates over to tabletop gaming. There are folks out there who want to keep technology completely away from their tabletop gaming.
Hmm.
But there's also plenty of people out there who are like, I have no problem bringing, the technology into the tabletop gaming. Like right now, because of the pandemic, if you want to be playing RPGs, you're probably bringing some technology into that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, you're rolling digital dice. I mean, like D&D Beyond is selling virtual dice, so you can buy different dice sets that are virtual, which is just
Seems legit. Sure.
yeah. But that's at the same time. If you told me like 10 years ago, like, hey, you should make an app that rolls dice, I'd be like, okay, yeah, there's like 1,000 of them. Like, yeah, but you sell the dice. I'd be like, nobody would ever buy that, and
Well,
I
no,
would be wrong.
yeah, no, people are crazy about dice. I was
Yeah, but I never thought the
before this whole
digital
thing was
dice.
going on. Oh, but still, like before this was going on, I was working on. You remember this? I was working on
Yeah,
starting
yeah, yeah.
to make a documentary about dice, a bit about how gamers love dice and all that kind of stuff. And I started interviewing, and talking to different people and stuff like that. And I talked to a guy at one of the dice manufacturers, one of the like the high end fancy dice manufacturers, not one of
Hmm.
the bulk dice places. And I was talking to him at a convention. It might have been Origins in Columbus, Ohio, and he like reached into his pocket and pulled out this little Ziploc bag with a normal little six-sider, what am I, 16 millimeter, 18 millimeter, whatever it was, but
Yep.
it was made out of fossilized dinosaur bone. So it was $100 for a single six-sider.
Yeah,
And I was
I
just
bet
like,
that dinosaur never thought that. Was like, like,
I don't know that dinosaurs thought much, but yeah, let's say that they were self-aware enough. It would have been like, someday
but
someone's
like,
going
can
to
you
take
imagine
part of
if
my
it became
rib
like
and,
a thing? Like, oh, my dog Spot is now turned into my dice set. Like,
right. Or heck, just why not just go family, And it's just like this is grandma, or whatever. I don't know. I mean, it's
Uncle Al's screwing me on my dice rolls today.
right, yeah. Whatever you're into, I guess, is fine. If everybody's on board, you guys can do whatever you want with my body after I leave. It's fine. I'm
Game
not.
Four
I'm not super
podcast is
concerned.
not a judging podcast.
No, no, exactly. We're but the technology, like, it totally makes sense to me that the dice thing, that they would then also sell like different dice packs and things like that. That
Yeah,
just seems like a thing, especially now in 2021. That just seems like the way things would go.
right.
But technology has been, I don't want to say creeping into tabletop games, because I think that sounds negative, but it
No,
has
but
been
it's
kind of
just
starting to move into it over the last, oh gosh, a
right.
number of years.
Yeah, so I was trying to think while we are putting the show notes together. Like, when is the first game? What's the first game that you can remember that had some kind of technology involved in it?
Hmm, hmm.
Like, I've got two in my head.
I
The first one is Dark Tower.
Yeah. Sure.
And
Oh
then
yeah, yeah. The board game with the plastic tower in the middle,
yeah, and it would like
and like
talk or something.
yep, yeah, 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 yeah.
And I don't remember much about it. I just remember the it had the talking head and or thing. And then the other one, Mall Madness, where you could like swipe your credit card and then like it would tell you if there was like a
Oh
sale
yeah.
at a certain store. So everybody had to try to get their people to that. I think the goal of the game was to try to like buy what you needed to buy, but at the best prices or something. I don't remember
Yeah,
exactly though.
yeah. I do remember from the commercials as a kid. I do remember the credit card swipe thing. I do remember that. Like, yeah, like before, I remember like there were certain board games that would have like a VCR component to them. Like you had to play
Oh
them in front of the
yeah,
TV,
I forgot
and
about
then
those.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, and then they went into DVDs later on. But yeah, it would be like, you'd have to like, I remember there was like, I think a Star Trek one where there was a
Hmm.
Klingon that was talking to you all the time about stuff and whatever. And yeah, I mean, so this has been going on for a while, since at least probably the 80s, if not potentially even earlier.
Yeah, I would say the '80s is probably when it became more mainstream. There might have been something before that, but I
Hmm.
don't know of much other than maybe like the football simulation that just basically was a shaker table.
Oh yeah. I watched a documentary about that on YouTube, and it was really interesting because there are people who get to like, it always seemed, and the joke has always been about that electric football, was you
Hmm.
set up all the pieces and you turned it on, and then all the pieces just sort of randomly spun around and banged into each other and stuff like that. But there are
Right.
people who play that game like competitively and actually
Yeah,
know how it works.
I don't remember. I'm fascinated that someone's like that there is more to it than just it just shakes and stuff randomly goes places. Like,
Hmm, hmm. Yeah. So it's interesting, and so I mean, like, I guess that's probably even earlier than the 80s, maybe the vibrating football thing. Although I
yeah,
don't
I
know.
would
I mean,
say,
I guess it is a tabletop game. It's actually more of a miniatures game, if anything, because you got little tiny
mm,
football dudes.
yeah, it was like a
You know,
precursor to Blood Bowl.
yeah, a little bit, yeah, yeah. They should make Blood Bowl where you just turn on a thing and the whole everything vibrates. That'd be fun.
Ooh,
Yeah, yeah,
huh,
that's a good idea right there.
there we go. If you'd like purchasing information, please contact the Game Four Podcast.
There you go.
And speaking of the VHS,
Hmm.
the thing that for me, like if I'm thinking about are there good things and bad things about technology, that I question is kind of the longevity. Like right now, if I
Right.
had a game that I wanted to play that was on VHS, I would have a very hard time finding a VHS
Very
player
good
to play.
point. I mean, even potentially like a DVD, you might not even have a DVD in your house anymore necessarily. You
Right.
might, if you've got a Blu-ray player, I think they'll play DVDs generally. But yeah,
Hmm.
and that's a good point. Like there are certain pieces of technology, like the original Dark Tower, if you could put AA batteries in it or whatever it took, I bet it probably still works as long as it wasn't
Right.
beat up too bad. But yeah, like if it's something that relies on another technology, you know, like and there have been games like that. Like there was an interesting game that, and you remember this game. It was called Golem Arcana. Remember
Yeah.
that one?
Hmm.
So it was a miniatures game, but you played it with an app. So you had miniatures actually on the board, and then you had an app, and then you had this Bluetooth stylus that they sold you that you linked to your iPad, let's say.
Device. Yep.
And then when you wanted to like activate a character, you actually could either use the stylus to tap on the character's base, or you could tap on their card, and then you would tap to the square you wanted to move them to on the
Right.
board, and then it would tell you whether it was in range or not, or how many action points you made. And when you shot at somebody or if you attacked them, it gave you the percentages, and it would even roll the dice, but you could also choose to roll the dice yourself and input it if you wanted to. And it
Hmm.
was a super cool system. And the miniatures were all pre-painted, and it had an interesting story backline. And now you can't play it anymore because they stopped supporting the game, and then eventually the app no longer is downloadable or anything like that. So if you go to the store and you find it there, you're like, oh, this sounds really cool. Well, you won't actually be able to play it in the normal way. You can still use the models for other cool stuff, but
Right.
otherwise, yeah, nothing. So, that's a thing to think
Yeah.
about as well with technology when you look at these things.
Right.
You could still play a game of Monopoly from the 50s because it's doesn't
Absolutely.
require anything to be plugged in or any kind of
Yeah, you
technology.
could play a 17th century chess set, no
Sure,
problem.
absolutely. Hmm.
But yeah, like it's like the game Mansions of Madness. They have a companion app that runs
Hmm.
as your DM, that kind of controls the game. Now the difference between that is that just means that somebody doesn't have to be the GM
Right.
for it. You could still play the game. That just kind of helps you the assist. So, and that's kind of, I think, the difference that you and I have always talked about, like whether we'll buy a game that relies on some kind of like app technology, because
Hmm.
making mobile apps, we know that in 5 years you're probably not going to be able to run that app because the iOS version requirements or Android version requirements are going to be out of date.
Right, exactly. Just from the technology standpoint of the development, you have to keep if you want an app like when your Facebook app, your Instagram app, your whatever
Mhm.
app, they have to constantly keep updating that as phone operating systems update and new phones come out and stuff like that. And so
Right.
I know I have on my app, my phone right now, I have apps that I don't even think necessarily work anymore because you can't download a new version because they abandoned it, and
Hmm.
it never got updated to iOS 13 or whatever, so it just doesn't work for some reason. And so that's
Right.
something to think about as well, with these kinds of things. But when it's a companion app and it helps to solve problems or make it easier, but it's not a
Right.
requirement.
Like yeah, because I mean, I remember like in the 80s and 90s games, like if there was any kind of timing component, almost always you had the cheap plastic hourglass with the
Hmm.
sand that kind of stuck to itself, but every
Yep.
once in a while it would do okay. But most
Yep.
of the time you had to kind of like flick it to make it actually work. Um,
Yeah. Oh yeah. Shake it. Good. Yeah.
like I'm okay that I have an app that automatically does a timer for me because I can always find something to do timing device
Hmm.
to if that for whatever reason their app stops working or I can't get the app.
Yeah.
So that I can see is great. Or a scorekeeping where like instead of writing it down on a piece of paper to track the score, I can just enter everything and it just does the whole formula and figures that out for me.
Yeah, if it's just as I don't want to say just as easy. If it is easy enough to play normally, to just play
Hmm.
it without any technology along, I'm much more interested in it as a game that I might buy for a long term. But if it also has a companion app that is not a requirement but is a convenience,
Right.
then I'm a little bit more interested because yeah, like you said, like I mean, with that Golem Arcana, right, I've got a bunch of models for that game that I really can't do anything with anymore. If anything, I'm gonna maybe, I don't know, use them as pieces of terrain, like cut them up and like, have them as like broken statues or something like that, repaint them in, bronze, and then, put some patina
Yeah.
on them and all that kind of stuff.
We should
But
we should
yeah,
almost do like one of those like vintage things where we bring it back, or like we build a new app that supports it.
I would think that there would be like, I don't know, like legal issues. I don't know, like they've abandoned it, but that doesn't mean that they'll just let anybody else pick it up. I don't know. That's a good
Yeah,
question.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know. It'd be interesting.
But it's something to think about when you're thinking about technology within your tabletop gaming. Is like,
Right.
is it a requirement? How long term do you think this requirement is? Are you fine with the fact that maybe in 3 years you won't be able to play this game anymore because the app will stop working or whatever?
Like, yeah, you remember those little tiny like the mini disc CDs that were supposed to like they were gonna like change everything. Like you're gonna go from CDs to like the little mini discs.
Oh, like the original, like actual mini disc players and stuff like that. They were recordable and
Yeah, that
stuff.
was like
Yeah, yeah.
it was like for like 2 years they kept trying to sell it. Like nobody seemed to really buy it, but there was
They're
probably some
super
people that bought
expensive.
it.
Yeah. No, I had a
Yeah,
friend who had one, but yeah, they were real expensive.
right. And yeah, imagine having a game just like based on that concept. Like, no, don't do that. Like,
Right, exactly. Because yeah, now who's using mini discs that much? Not too many people, because most people, I mean, admittedly, you probably have your audiophiles who are looking for very specific bit rates and things like that. But for your
right.
average person, most people are listening to like Spotify or Pandora or whatever on their phone, or maybe even MP3s that they've got on their phone, or maybe they've got an iPad pod or something like that. But for the most part, yeah, I don't know that there's a lot of mini discs selling going on anymore. So
Yeah,
if your
because
game
like
required a
vinyl's
mini
come
disc,
back, but I don't know if mini disc has.
yeah, and vinyl I think is a different story because it has a different sound, I guess, to some degree.
Right,
From the people that I
because it
know
kind
that
of brings
use
an
it,
analog sound to whereas everything's been replaced digitally, so it gives a
I always
different
hear
sound.
there's an added warmth to
Right.
the yeah, which is that's cool. But I think within tabletop gaming, I think that you're right. I think it's something to think about, to be wary about. Maybe if it's a requirement that you have to use the app for a game,
Hmm.
that may not be a great thing. But if it's an add-on, a companion that can help or can speed things along or to keep
Right.
track easier, then different story altogether. But what about like what if it helps to replace things that like to make things
Okay.
a
Yeah.
bit more like portable, right? I mean, to that kind
Right.
of stuff.
I mean, yeah, that would that is a nice thing. Like I said, if you don't have to bring the score pad in, a bunch of
Hmm.
pencils and a timer and a few other things, like being able to do portable, like the game Headband. Um, where you have like a name of something or an object, and you put it on your head, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to try to guess it based on the hints everybody else is giving you.
Right, because you can't see it because it's on your forehead.
Right.
Hmm.
So when my family we went down to Disney World, I believe it'd be the summer before the pandemic, so
Hmm.
2019. That
Yeah.
was like when we were waiting in lines. That was like our like go to was like we started playing that game because we just needed one person's phone with it. Didn't need internet, but we could sit there and play the game and just pass the phone around. And then instead of having to bring the whole game with the cards and everything else, it was
Mm.
super portable, and we could basically play the entire game just with the technology.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But let's say there was an EMP and everybody's phones died or something like that. You could still play the game. It's not a requirement. It's just making it
Right.
a bit
I
easier.
could buy the physical game, and you can take the card and put it on your head. You can take a post-it note and write it on your
Yeah,
head. Yeah. Yep.
absolutely.
Absolutely.
I made a video, gosh, several years ago about uh, augmented reality. So you've got VR, which is virtual reality, and then you've got
Yep.
augmented reality, AR. And what that is usually it's kind of like virtual reality is you put on a headset and now you don't see anything. You don't see any real
Right.
reality. You only
The whole
see
world's created around it. Yep.
exactly. Whereas augmented reality, you're either looking generally through your phone or through your iPad, but maybe in the future, hopefully soon, you'll be looking through some sort of glasses or something that you can
Hmm.
still see your living room, but now there's Minecraft on the floor in your living room, and you can be moving the blocks around and doing stuff and whatever. But you can also still see your couch and stuff like that. If you look at I mean, it was a very limited version of augmented reality, but Pokemon Go had that built in where,
Right.
you would see the Pikachu on the street as you were walking around and you would try to catch it and stuff like that. Um,
Hmm.
But anyway, there was during one of the big announcements of what I think it was maybe the iPhone 10, they showed off this AR game, which is what caused me to make a video about it. It was a game called The Machines, and it was
Hmm.
AR, and it wasn't turn based. It was more what they call real time strategy. But you would you'd look at a table and it would put buildings and hills and like robots and all kinds of different stuff like right
Right.
there. And it was able to be played multiplayer. So you could be looking at it from one side of the table, and I'd be looking at it from the other side of the table. We were both playing against each other and stuff like that. And it was really cool. Now, you don't necessarily want to have to sit there and hold your phone and like peer through your phone to see what's going on in the table. And I had a lot of people in
Right.
the comments who said, well, why would I do that when I could just play the game? Like, why would I play a game virtually like
Right.
that when I could just play the game? And that's true. But if it's, let's say, lunchtime and you and your friend want to play a game that's like a miniatures game, let's say something like Warhammer 40,000. If they ever made an AR version of Warhammer 40,000, you could just play it. You wouldn't have to bring all your stuff. That's the portability thing
Right.
again.
You could
And you could
have.
also pause and then come back, to tomorrow and finish the
Oh, that'd
game,
be nice. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or
And you not have to worry
infinite.
about stuff sitting on the
Yeah.
table and all that.
Infinite terrain. All kinds of
Oh,
terrain, or
yeah.
like real, like lava's actually moving, or adaptable terrain, right? Like
Hmm.
if someone shoots a catapult, or a rocket or something, it blows up, something. Well, now there's a crater there, and now it's
Yeah. Oh,
difficult
absolutely.
terrain.
Now, this all sounds kind of like a video game, and Lord knows they already make video games that you can play. I mean, heck, there are more Warhammer fantasy type games. It's a
Hmm.
company that's called Creative Associates? No, Creative Assembly over in the UK, and they've made a series of games called Warhammer Total War or Total War Warhammer. I don't remember. But those are real time strategy games with Skaven versus Chaos versus, Bretonians versus whatever. And those are, but that's a different thing. Sitting down playing a video game is different than doing AR, because AR, especially if you're playing against somebody, you're playing against them in person. You know what I mean? You've
Right.
just kind of made the video game portion of it a little bit, but you still are having to. That's the cool thing about the AR, was that you would get down low to like see, can this guy see that guy past that hill? And you would actually get down and look to see if you could. Whereas in a video game, it's much less. You're just basically sitting in a chair moving a mouse around, which is
Right.
fine. And so, like, Lord knows they've been doing that for a good long time. There've been plenty of video games made that are based off of or direct translations of tabletop games. My wife and I used to love to play Carcassonne on the Xbox, because when
Hmm.
you got done, you didn't have to do all the math. It took care of it all for you. So it was really
Right.
simple, and it was a
Yeah.
lot quicker and more fun.
We used to play Risk in the dorms, me and
Mhm.
a friend of mine, and it was nice because we could play the whole game in 30, 40 minutes because we didn't have to move the player, move
Mhm.
everything or whatever. It was a really, really fast way to play it, and we didn't have, we could do it on my laptop, sitting on the
Yeah.
couch, versus having to like carry a board game, get all
Find
the
it
pieces
right.
out, and find
Exactly.
a
Set it
table.
all
Yeah.
up, find a table big enough, all that stuff. Yeah. So there's some benefits, I think, to the technology thing. Now, admittedly, both of those situations are things that completely depend upon the technology. There's no way, like, like that monster, that the Machines game, there is no tabletop game version of it.
Right.
Now, if you did play a tabletop game version, you could, if let's say again, let's say it was a, maybe not Games Workshop, maybe it's another company like Weird Games. They make a game called Malifaux. If they
Hmm.
made an AR version of Malifaux to try to get more people playing the game, they could do that, and you could get the different types of miniatures and all that stuff and set up terrain and do all that jazz. And that'd be really interesting to do. But you could also still then, it would basically almost in many situations be almost like a learning tool to get you interested in buying their miniatures. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
So
because it
that,
could tell you what to roll or how far your distance was, or
and also just to like show you a bunch of cool miniatures. And the idea is that you
yeah.
hope that I mean, the reason that these companies license out their video games is frankly to make a little extra money off of their intellectual property. But in many situations, specifically within the miniature market, they're also trying to get you to hopefully, like, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to in the past at conventions and things like that said, oh, I got into Warhammer 40,000 because of the video game Dawn of War, or I got
Hmm.
into, Warhammer Fantasy or Age of Sigmar because of Total War Warhammer. like I kept seeing these Skaven or these vampire counts or these Necrons or all these different things, and then I was at the store and then I bought some, and now I've been playing, and now I'm here at a tournament.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it is an entry vector, and so that's why they'll do it. But the portability is a big deal, and it's really super kind of interesting, and it has its place. I think.
Hmm.
Where do you think it doesn't have its place?
So this one, this part was where I this is the try not to fearmonger, but yeah,
Right.
it's going to be there, right?
Hmm.
Like poker and chess have pretty much been AI solves. Chess for sure. They've beat the grandmaster. Poker, for all intents and purposes, they've shown that a computer can win far more times than a human can play against it. And
Which
I
I think
believe
is interesting because they always say that poker, it's all about knowing when to bluff and knowing how to read your opponent.
right, but yeah, and that's the thing is the whole reading the opponent and knowing their betting styles. And I mean, with machine learning, you could take a lot of variables and condense that very quickly to to you know to decide whether or not that's important or not.
Hmm.
Humans, we can do that. We can take past experiences and a bunch of other stuff to try to figure out what we think is going to happen. Um,
But
and
it's
that's
not fallible
right, but
because our memories aren't that good.
right, and we don't always know the right stuff. Sometimes we're like, oh, every time he nods his head, he does this. Well,
Hmm.
no, that's just he was doing that and now he stopped. Like,
Hmm.
I watched an interesting YouTube video from Mark Rober where they built a machine learning algorithm to steal baseball signs. And it was talking about how like they can have major league baseball players who play this have basically played this game since they're little, are being paid millions of dollars to play this nonstop, and the whole team can spend the whole game looking at the third base coach and try to steal like the bunt sign or steal sign or whatever to try to figure out what the coaches are telling the players to do
Hmm.
and still not get it.
Right.
But he was within working with a programmer that understood how machine learning worked. They were able to basically like at a like the like a little league level, like within half an inning, know the sign. And then Mark came up with like this weird like if I touch my eyebrow, it does the reverse, but then I have to do this. Like came up with this super complicated like sign that just is mixed in with all this other stuff. And using machine learning, the other guy was able to pick it out of there within minutes.
Crack the code, basically.
Right, because it was
Yeah.
able to weed through all the noise to figure out the pattern,
Hmm.
um, much faster than humans can.
Right.
So I'm wondering, like, where does that go? Like, am I, you know, as so machine learning is becoming easier and cheaper. Like, 20 years ago, machine learning was really not a thing, or even if it was a thing, it was only kind of done at the university level, or
Right.
maybe like some smart people at a stock brokerage firm or something like that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
nowadays, like I can go on and sign up for a free account on Amazon and have full access to very strong machine learning algorithms, plug in some learning data, and start getting results, you know, within minutes.
Well, yeah, I mean the newest Macs, like the new M1 chip Macs, have got a pretty powerful neural engine, in as part of that, system on or
Right.
chip on a chip on a what's it called? System on a chip, system on a
Hmm.
whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the reason for that is because so many different applications now are using some sort of machine learning, and they can then send it to specifically that neural engine to make it work. And so, I mean, the question then becomes like, how does that get into, like, obviously you could use it for chess, you could use it for frankly kind of cheating at poker to some degree, you know what I mean?
Right.
But
But I mean,
what about regular tabletop games? What does that
right.
mean for
You
that
could,
kind of
yeah.
stuff?
For if you take any of your games that are not like a roll and repeat, like like we talked about. Sorry, there's not a lot of
Oh,
strategy
right.
there.
That's true.
But I mean, like, okay, let's take a just a funny example, like Guess Who. You know,
Hmm.
we're I probably there's even a YouTube video. I bet there's probably 10 of them out there that talk about how you can use machine learning to basically automatically win at Guess Who.
Hmm.
Like it, you know, based on stuff. Like, at what point does it go from like a good strategy that you're learning to basically being like, oh, if the player is doing this, do this, or for this game, you always want to do this for your first three moves to win the
Right.
game.
Yeah, yeah. It gets down into, I think, even, and that can be just general stats. Like I said, I think in a previous episode recently, I was playing Axis and Allies against some friends of mine who played all the
Mm.
time,
Oh,
and
right,
I
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
and my first move I did this, and they all just kind of looked at me and were like, "No, no, you're playing England. You do this on the first move," and I'm like, "But I don't want to," and they're like, "But that's the move," and I'm like, "But you
And
know,"
what's
and
funny is
so,
like that. So they were taking their empirical knowledge, but you know, maybe you like went and did a whole bunch of research that found out that actually this is the winning move, and it's going to lock their thinking wrong. And within five moves, I'm going to you know, I'll have a superior advantage over everybody else.
yeah, that's what I did. That's exactly what I did. They didn't
But
just
I mean, but
slap me all
you
around the map, but yeah,
right.
yeah,
But you could have like,
I
you know,
suppose.
at what point does that go from strategy to just being like basically like the aim bots of tabletop gaming, right?
Oh
Like aim
yeah, so like
bots,
yeah, aimbot in video games makes it so that it kind of actually steers your hand a little bit, not physically your
right?
hand, but within the game, you're
Like, yeah, your
getting
gun will
close
all of
to
a
the
sudden
thing
like
you're going to shoot, but it
shoot,
locks on.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, like when will it be like where you can be like, oh, I just took a picture with my phone of the of our 40K game, and it told me, oh, there's a 90% chance that Adam is going to try to flank me on the right here, and what I should do is in the next turn move my guys behind cover over here.
Well, I mean, honestly, the way that a lot of people are playing games like, let's say Warhammer, like you were just saying,
Hmm.
right now is a lot of people are playing them on tabletop simulators. So they're playing them virtually. What's to say you don't have a second window open like on your other monitor that
Mm,
shows you when I have 9 of these guys up against 7 of these guys, and I know what the rolls are and all this kind of stuff and what the modifiers are, like what's my percentage chance of, how many guys am I going to, like, that's all math. That's very simple. It's,
right,
as a pro player, and I'm not saying this as if I'm a pro player, but as a pro player, you start to know what my chances are and and it's kind of like poker. It's like knowing, okay, there's a very good chance if the averages are normal that I'm going to be able to
right.
kill
Yeah, should I
1.3
take
guys per turn and that kind of stuff in in
right?
this matchup, right?
Yeah, should I shoot from here with this weapon, or should I run
Hmm.
up and try to do hand to hand?
And that's
What
what
are
kind of keeps the pro players ahead of the people who are not necessarily paying attention to that level or don't have the ability or the knowledge. But when you've got a screen telling you if you do this and this is the outcome, that's,
Mhm.
then obviously if you're constantly looking at your phone, well, although like even though now there's a lot of people whose entire army lists are on their phone. So you could
Mhm.
in theoretically, be writing some sort of app that then makes it so that it just tells you the percentages and you go, well, it'd be actually smarter for me to attack this versus that because the numbers are showing it this. Whereas normally that's a strategy decision you're supposed to be making in your head.
Right.
So, watching out that kind of information. There was an AR app for Star Wars X-Wing
Mhm.
that you could look through
Oh, for,
and
like,
it
the
would pick out
distancing
the
and stuff.
yeah, it would pick out the different ship sizes, and you could mark and say, okay, well this base size here is a Millennium Falcon, whereas this base size over here is like a Tie Fighter, and then because that game is based off of movement on that wheel, where you have to spin and say I'm going to do
Mhm.
this move or this move, it could show you all the potential moves as you're like staring through your phone, and then that way you'd know whether you were going to hit a rock or whether you were going to be able to get behind this guy or that guy and that kind of stuff. And they always said in the app, oh, this is for training purposes only, but whenever you say that means you're basically just trying to make it people understand they're not supposed to use it to cheat.
And
But
and
that,
and and
yeah,
get people to not to just instantly hate you for doing it.
right, exactly. But like, yeah, you couldn't use that at a tournament. They would be like, no, you are not supposed to do that. Even a friendly game, you shouldn't use something like that. But it's
Right.
out there. It's not
Mhm.
not that hard to do. So yeah, so that I guess that's the question. Like, how much are we going to see that? I mean, how much are we going to have to keep an eye on it? Like I said, right now with the playing remotely, it's real hard to kind of catch that stuff if you have to. But I think it's going to be a little bit easier to catch, at least for a while. At tournaments, let's say, or things that are you're playing competitively for
Mhm.
glory or money or who knows what. But sooner versus later, we might have that kind of stuff in our glasses and no one will be able to tell that we're using overlays to figure out what our percentages are and all kinds of stuff, I mean.
Right, or sent directly into our brain.
Oh my goodness, I don't need that. I mean, if you think how many times I got to reboot my computer, I don't want to reboot my brain that much. That seems like a terrible idea. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know that we necessarily have an answer on technology, on whether it's good or bad, for tabletop gaming. There are parts of it that can be quite helpful, certainly. But I think that there are also things you need to watch out for. Longevity of the platform, people using it for cheating, that kind of stuff. And, but Lord knows we're not putting that Pandora back in that box. So, it's something to keep in mindful of and keep an eye on, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we get to work in that industry, which is fun, but
exactly.
We're generally making websites telling people why they should buy a game, or we're maybe making an app that tells you who you can talk to play a game, but we're not building websites or apps that tell you how to cheat at games or anything along those lines. So
as far as you know.
As far as we know, yes, that's true. Yeah. Well, thanks again for listening to this episode of the Game 4 podcast. If you've got questions or comments and you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment below. If you're listening via your favorite podcast player or you're just aren't into the whole YouTube comment section thing, then you can feel free to reach out to us via email at podcast@imgame4.com. You can also keep up to date with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and check out our website at www.imgame4.com. That is www.imgame4.com. Thank you very much.
Thanks.